It's good to be back in Bnei Akiva. I work there a lot, but not here in England. So it's good to see some familiar faces. People have been on my programs and with him, and those people I haven't met before and hope to get to know you. If you don't know me, I work for World Bnei Akiva, and I run the Torani program and do run events for Bnei Akiva generally in Israel. So I'm visiting here at the moment, and Dina very kindly asked me to speak, and it's really great to be here in the Bayit. I'll just say one thing about Slichot in the Bayit, which is, I'm sure you come regularly and know how amazing it is. One of the things that I always find amazing is that the whole community does a big deal about first night Slichot. Right, everyone does, every shul or every community has a big first night Slichot. This is the only place I know that does a big deal for last night Slichot. Now that might be because it's small, and then some people say, oh, it's not worth it, but actually, it's really important because when you finish something, if you start something, finishing it is just as important. It's very nice to start a great thing. Yeah, we're going to do sleep every night, maybe it doesn't continue towards the end. Here in Bnei Akiva, you start and finish as well, and I think it's really important. I always, when I was working here, and I used to come when I was living in England, I always used to like last night in Slichot the most, more than any. It gets you in the mood, and now I'm sure some of you will be at the Bayit Minyan over Yom Kippur, which I'm sure will be great. I just wanted to share an idea and which will hopefully flow into talking a bit about how we can all help Bnei Akiva a little bit. So we read on Rosh Hashanah, and I think it's on the Yom Kippur Machzor as well. Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, v'Yom Tzom Kippur yikatevun. We don't have to do the dirge now, but if you want, we can make that part of the Slichot afterwards. I've always been a bit depressed by this paragraph because it lists all the different ways that you can die, right? Who by fire, who by, what are the other ones? Water, sword, right? And then there's these people who every year they put out the Unatane Tokef video where they show natural disasters over the last words to nice music. Did you know Unatane Tokef? It is the most depressing video ever. I remember I was a teacher in King Solomon and I wanted to show them the video and I was like, it's like everyone thinks it's great because of the music, but it is extremely depressing. Now, what is the thing about this prayer? Because we're supposed to say on Yom Kippur, we get sealed for the book of life, we say in the Amidah, so why do we talk about all the ways that we can die? It seems very depressing. There are some good bits, right? What are the good bits in that passage? Unatane Tokef, by the way, I didn't say at the beginning of the paragraph. What are the good bits? Who will be created? That's good, right? Who will be rich?
Exalted,
who will live in harmony. So I looked at it this year and I said, why is it that there's so much more bad than good? And it dawned on me that the difference between the different phrases, and you can have a look in the Masa, is not actually between good and bad. There are some things that are good, but actually it's not that. There's one thing that is in common with nearly all of them. They are all things that are passive. Everything in that paragraph is things that you can't control. How you die, whether you die before your time or after your time, whether you will be created or not, so to speak. Even the good ones are all to do with things that happen to you. Who will be rich? So people can win the lottery. Winning the lottery could be a curse. There are many people who've lost all their fortunes because they've used it in wrong ways. Everything in that paragraph is things that happen to you, but not things that you actually do to yourself. Where does that come into it? The next paragraph. Because what do we say straight after Rosh Hashanah, that paragraph? We say three things help to avert the evil decree. Those three things, it says right? It really should say the word aval, right? It's like a but. There's that and then there's this. It is, the difference is that God gives us a set of circumstances. However, he also gives us a way out. When we want to rest, when we want physical pleasure, those things are naturally programmed in us, just like animals have them. But things that we can control, things that can leave a legacy in this world, things that make a difference to other people and create goodness in the world, those things are not natural desires. Our natural desire is to rest and not do those things. Those are the things that we've been given the ability to control and do better and break out of the natural way of living. That is utshuva, utfila, utstaka, marvin, utragazera. If there's any description of what it is to be Jewish, it's that paragraph. It might be a bit depressing, but that's what we do on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We are a bit depressed. We say, yes, there are bad things in the world, and we also say that if we don't live a life of meaning, then we will just be one of those people who will either die before time, after time, maybe we'll become rich, maybe we'll have sheket, harmony, tranquility. They're not things that are associated with legacy, making a difference. Things will happen to us. The question is, are we going to make a difference? But Teshuvah, Tefillah, Tzedakah is not just something we say on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, it's a way of life for Jews. That is what makes us Jewish. I like to think, if any organisation, movement, covers the idea of Teshuvah, Tefillah, Tzedakah, it's us here in Bnei Akiva. In fact, it's not our regular three-pronged thing. Normally we say, Torah, Avodah, and Aliyah. But actually, Teshuvah, Tefillah, Tzedakah could actually fit the bill. Teshuvah is about returning to our source. It means return and not repentance. Teshuvah is saying we had something, and in our souls, we have this idea that we were taught the Torah when we were growing up, before we were born. The idea being there's some spark within us. We have to light that spark. We have to return. Bnei Akiva, more than anyone, teaches us not just to return in a religious sense, in a spiritual sense, but also in a physical sense. We have a spiritual home and a physical home. Our spiritual home is learning Torah, is doing mitzvah, and our physical home is Eretz Yisrael. And Bnei Akiva connects us to that spark through machaneh, through siva, through hachshara. Everything that we do is about saying to us that we are trying to return home in either a spiritual or physical sense. Tefillah. Tefillah ultimately is about hopes and dreams. And this is something that we're reminded of each year, even though this is the time of year where we probably spend the most amount of time saying Aramaic or Hebrew words that we may not understand in slichot and things. On Rosh Hashanah, we were taught of what prayer ultimately is. And prayer ultimately is Chana. Was one of the first people to teach us how to daven, or at least the person that we learn a lot of the Hilchot Tefillah from. Chana ultimately has hopes and dreams for a child. She goes to God, she pleads for it. And the prayer that we learn how to daven from is actually her prayer of thanks to God after she has a child, and she then immediately dedicates her son to God. Tefillah is our hopes and dreams for leaving a legacy in this world. And once again, and just to contrast with Teshuvah is about returning to our source, and Tefillah is hoping for something better, the past and the future. That would be lovely, except that it's not the whole story. It's all very well to stand there on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and think about these great lofty ideals, about how we want to return and to maybe get closer to God, or maybe we want to learn more Torah, or maybe we want to strive to connect to Israel or ultimately move to Israel, or maybe we want to daven better. All these things ultimately are still a bit in the air. We need to bring them down to earth, and that's exactly what tzedakah is. Tzedakah is acts of loving kindness. It's acts of righteousness. That's what it means, tzedakah. Although we talk about giving charity, it's much more than giving charity. Tzedakah is making things right in the world. That is the third element. And that puts everything together. Bnei Akiva, more than anything, stresses the need for action. Bnei Akiva says it's not enough to be spiritual and to say, we have our own desire to be spiritual and to make aliyah. And it's not enough to spend our time immersed in prayer. We have to bring that to other people. Tzedakah is the only one of those three things that requires other people. You can't do it on your own. Bnei Akiva says, if you have that connection to God, to Israel, if you have those dreams and hopes to make your society better, to make Israel better, to make the Jewish people better, then you have to share it with other people. You be a madrich. You go to share it at Limud. You go on gap years to Israel. You do all of these things. Tzedakah is the key component to make it the three, right? The three things on which the world stands on. Today, as we come to the approach Yom Kippur, Teshuvah and Tefillah we can all do ourselves, right? We're going to hopefully do that in the next couple of days. Tzedakah for the next day is something that we can start here and now. And I'm delighted to endorse the Yom Kippur Appeal. Yom Kippur Appeal is actually not just for money. And because if Bnei, the Mazkirot here, they know that there's no millionaires in the room, at least I don't think there are. It's not about how much you give. It's about the concept of giving. The concept of saying, we have these ideals, let's make an effort and start acting on them. So here, there are great things that Bnei Akiva are doing over the course of the year. I work with Joe and the Muscular very closely, and I'm really excited about all the things that they're doing. We speak about it quite regularly, and I'm sure you've seen how amazing this Muscular are done, building on the excellent work done by David and last year's Muscular. And he'll tell you in a second about all of these things. All I can say is each one of them are very critical. But in the general picture, what we can do today is we can give some tzedakah, and more importantly, think about how we can do all of these three things. What's going to be our tzedakah and acting on it for the rest of the year? We're going to give some money to those things. Are we going to actually help achieve them? Even better, if we give tzedakah, can we ask a friend to maybe give tzedakah? Can we make Bnei Akiva something that is not just the kind of more people are going to care about, more people are going to give to? I often find when people talk about giving tzedakah, there is a certain cultural aversion to giving tzedakah to educational organizations. A lot of times, if there is charities that are helping people, let's say ill people, no one questions that it's a good thing to give tzedakah to them, and rightly so. But often people say, why would you give tzedakah to an educational organization? They don't say it like that, they say it in different ways. And I want to say, there is no better organization that I can give tzedakah to than the people that shape us in terms of who we are, in terms of an organization, a movement that helps us to return to God, to spirituality, to have hopes and dreams, to make a better world, to give acts of righteousness. So I'm going to hand over to Joe in a second. I really hope that everyone can fill in this appeal and take another copy, give it to your parents, your friends, and say, let this year be the year where we bring the complete picture together. Through Teshuvah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, we can not only make life better, hopefully for ourselves, and wish each other, and hope everyone will have a good year, but also through our acts of righteousness, be it giving charity, be it taking machaneh, be it being involved in Bnei Akiva, and however, we can make a legacy in this world. We can make a difference in this world. And hopefully, by next year, Bnei Akiva will be stronger because of everyone in this room redoubling their efforts in bringing more people to the movement and bringing the movement to ever greater heights. It's been a pleasure to be with you. I'm going to introduce Joe. Wish everyone Gemar Chatima Tova.
Thank you very much, Michael. In a few minutes, Ali and I think Dean are going to be passing around the pledge cards. But I just want to kind of walk through and kind of explain exactly what we're going to be doing, what we plan on raising money for in order that we can accomplish as goals over the course of the year. For those who are unable to be here tonight, there will also be a form put out online over Facebook, and please also fill that in. Any help from any source is really greatly appreciated. When we look at what's on the sheet, a lot of it is the tenets of Bnei Akiva. It's our foundations and what we truly believe in. When we talk about education, we are the core root. We are the home of religious Zionism in the UK. And as a result, something which we want to accomplish over this year, and if not this year, then possibly next year, is we want to launch a program of digital archiving. Upstairs and at the back of the room, we have about 50 to 60 years of religious Zionist educational material. It's in hard copy. It's effectively useless as it is. It's just sitting in the shelf and no one's able to look at it. We want to, over the course of the next year, be able to put it up as a library online so that anyone everywhere can actually access these wonderful resources that we have spanning 60 years of religious Zionist education. We are proud of how many people we are able to provide that education for. However, some people just simply aren't able to afford to come on Israel Machaneh, to come on Machanot, to go on Hachshara. And as a result, they need our assistance. They need everyone's assistance out there in order to sort of come to us and be able to learn from us. As a result, we are also raising money for bursaries, so that all those who aren't necessarily as privileged as some of us may have been are also able to come on Machaneh. We also take pride in not just being sort of the people in this room, but we take pride in being a religious Zionist and a Bnei Akiva community across the UK. And these things are consolidated by certain events that we do throughout the years, in Sheva events, Bogrim events, but also we do other projects, which are community building projects. Things such as providing, like we used to kind of give out whenever a child was born, baby grows, to sort of new parents, in a little movement shirt. And it was something that was so important because it's about creating that environment where there's sort of a Bogrim community and everyone can sort of grow up in this sort of Bnei Akiva environment. The other thing that we also rely on is Zionism. We do so much work in Israel and we want to kind of extend that and go beyond what we've just been doing this year. We have gap year people We have people who are there in yeshiva and SENS and other sort of gap year programs who we want to be able to provide events for throughout the year so that they can connect to Israel through the Bnei Akiva model. But we also have other ideas. We have other programs that we want to do. We have charity trips which are planned for year 12. But that needs financial support. We have another potential program which, if we raise the money, we can do it. We can send Bogrim to Israel with university students in order to provide a Hasbara trip. We can only do that if we are able to raise money. And finally, each of us, at grassroots level, Svivot. Svivot always can do with financial support in order to really accomplish their own goals, their own sort of unique dreams. Svivot is so important. They're about youth empowerment. They're about youths in their own shuls, growing up and finally being able to take control of what happens for them. But sometimes they need our support as well. So everyone who's in this room, everyone who's watching sort of online, please, just donate a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. Because everything you can give us can go a long way and it'll be really appreciated. Thank you, everyone.